thing for us, as opposed to what has occurred between 2021 to now, and the policies that have shaped our country and our lives. And every policy decision, you could say, yes, these decisions, these policy decisions have changed, have impacted positively on the lives of every St. Lucian. And the testimony, yes, it's an endorsement of the candidate. I can do that too. I mean, my producer has given me leeway to do that kind of thing too. I can do that, no problem. But I want to focus again, although I've done it and have been doing it, to show how impactful the policies in education are. And I will not waste any time. You know, I will do that. I'll read something by Claudius. I came across something by Claudius Francis. And I'm sure that's why I want to open the lines. Maybe you have been impacted by the policies. You know, we have children, we have nieces, we have nephews, we have grandchildren going to school. And life now for a child going to school is so much different from when we were going to school. The struggles as opposed to now. So the clip is a little long, but that's okay. It's worth it. And I want you now to digest what is being said. And I'll try to come and expand and take it from there. So, Jaquan, just roll the clip.
Have you ever thought of sharing a story, but somehow you felt torn as to whether or not you should? Simply because you're thinking of what would other people see? How would it impact you? I have battled this, but today I'm sharing my story. I am Cherylyn Anderson Rogers, and I am a constituent of Micoud South. I was born and raised in the community of Diga. Yes, Diga Micoud. I was raised in a single-parent household with my mother and my other siblings. I went to the Tiroshe Micoud Combined School, and from there, I went on to the Micoud Secondary School. It was there my story started. The story that I'm about to share. The story that I have shared only once publicly, but I have chosen to share it with you today. I went to school at the Micoud Secondary School, and I did everything I was supposed to do. Submitted my assignments, well-disciplined student, represented the school. I was an average student doing everything I needed to do. I got to Form 4, and that is when the story really started. I'm not sure what the procedure is right now for students writing CXC, but I remember back then, you would be given a slip, basically your name and the amount of money that you have to pay at the bank. I received that slip. I looked at the amount, which was just a little over $300. And I thought, there is no way on earth that my mother is going to be able to pay $300+ for me to write CXC. So guess what I did? I pushed this slip in my bag and I forgot it. I never told my mom a thing. I didn't tell my principal. I didn't tell my teachers. I didn't tell my friends, because who would? And day in, day out, week after week, I went to school, I continued working on my SBAs, but never gave my mother this slip to pay for CXC because I knew she couldn't afford it. Let's fast forward to the due date, the last day that I had to pay CXC. I got up in the morning and I got dressed for school as normal, but I couldn't leave the house. I went into the living room and I stood in front of my mom a couple, maybe feet away, and she was seated on a chair. And I said, "Mama, I have to pay CXC." She looked up at me. She said nothing. Then she got up from the chair and went into the room. She came back out with some soiled notes. Maybe one or two $20 notes, but mostly $10 and $5 notes. And I am in shock. And I said, Mama, where you get that money from? And she said to me, Ishmwe savuni pu machi CXC. And then we started to count the money. It was a little bit more than the $300+ that I needed. But my mom gave me what I needed to pay the CXC. And that morning, that must have been one of the happiest days of my life. I did not take the bus. I walked, and for those of you who know the community of Diga and you know the Micoud South constituency well, I walked from Diga to Micoud with that money in my bag, one thing on my mind, to go to the bank to pay it. And for those of you who are from the Micoud area, you would have remembered that Barclays Bank was downstairs Maleni. I went straight to the bank, even before going to school, straight to the bank, and I made that payment for CXC. Why am I sharing all of this? For all of my life, I have never stopped wondering, what if I had never gotten this opportunity to write CXC? Just what if? And I didn't stop there. I taught for many years at the Viewford Primary School. I went on and I attended Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Division of Teacher Education. Graduated from that. I then moved on and I did a first degree in education with the University of the West Indies, graduating with first class honors. I didn't stop there. I moved on further and I did a master's in science also with the University of the West Indies, and I graduated with distinction. Today, I, the young lady, the little girl from Duga Micoud in the Micoud South constituency, today I am Dr. Cherylyn Anderson Rogers, having completed a doctoral degree in education with specialization in curriculum and instruction. Today, I share my story because I want to encourage every member, every constituent of Micoud South that when we hear about the policies of the Philip J. Pierre administration, don't take it lightly. Those policies that speak to education as a student, as a teacher, and as a principal, as a lifelong educator, I know too well how this can impact children. When I was in Form 4, there were students who disappeared in Form 4 and I never saw them again. As an adult now, I am now beginning to think, could it be because they couldn't afford CXC at the time? I want to appeal to you that your child's tomorrow begins today. And we have to celebrate, acknowledge, and do good on those policies that support education. Even universal early childhood education. Oh my goodness, we cannot just slip this under the rug. And if you are there thinking that you don't have any children, so it does not matter, or just maybe your children are grown, guess what? I don't have any children either. But I'm doing it for my nieces, my nephews, my cousins, the neighbors' children that you see out there and you're thinking, why aren't they going to school? Do it for them. Their tomorrow begins today. Micoud South, we have a vibrant, able candidate that has been placed before us. Let us not send a message across to our young people that they are not good enough. I am from Micoud South and I am good enough. Chandali Haraksin is from Micoud South and she is good enough. I encourage you to do the right thing. And when you go out to vote this election season, ensure that you are voting for policies that will not just put food on your table today, but will give you a lifetime of subsistence, will give you a lifetime that will change who you are for the better. Micoud South, we are good enough. And in case you're wondering, I was not asked to do this. I am not being paid to do this. I am doing this on my own volition, on my own accord. I have been promised nothing. I'm doing this because we are good enough. And when you go to the polls this election, you must demonstrate that we are good enough and do the right thing.
My goodness, this is touching. She was not paid. She's not a political actor. She spoke from the heart. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre and his administration are putting us first. And you heard the lady. You know, I wondered, you know, I can figure my story and my brothers, because my mom, how she did it, we don't know. You know, she paid 6 of us, all CXCs, etc. Very little help. I remember early on, I got a bursary to St. Mary's, you know. We all went to St. Mary's. It was not easy. I have sat on the other side of the desk where I've had to deal with parents who crunch time. No money to pay for CXCs. And she made a very important point. Sometimes in Form 4, students just disappear. They just drop out. And who knows what could have been had Mr. Pierre and his administration been in power then to implement, you know, those policies that are implemented now. If those policies had existed then, maybe the landscape might have been different. You know, some of us take a lot of things for granted. We don't think because it's second nature. We get bread, you know, we have sandwiches, we go to school, everything is... But there are quite a number of students, number of children who are not as privileged. I read something by Claudius Francis. Let me read it. Good morning, Dr. Cherylyn Anderson. Thank you so much for your wonderful and insightful testimonial. I must immediately confess that though there were 8 of us raised on a policeman's salary, I never gave much thought to the unseen generosity that might have allowed others to pursue their GCE subjects. That's what they were called then, in his days, my days too. Your words were a powerful wake-up call. They have opened my eyes, and heart to consider more closely the plight of the less fortunate, who had ability but not finance, compelling me to reflect on the silent acts of kindness that shaped my own educational path. It wasn't that I was selfish, but in a world where GC's results were what we were judged by and what decided whether or not we became employed, success was our primary objective. I am truly grateful for this important perspective. Had Dr. Anderson's mom not been insightful and wise to save the little $5, $10, she was shocked that her mother had that saved because her mother knew. And don't forget, we say 2 Nobel laureates, etc. And you know, we quote Sir Arthur all the time. You know, the way out of poverty is knowledge. You know, education is the key. And our party, the St. Lucia Labour Party, when in government, we have always focused on education. Now, that's not sexy. It brings in no money. Now, if you're going to run a country like a business, obviously you'll stop laptops because there's no profit. There's no financial return on that. So if you're going to run a country like you run a business, education will suffer. You understand? So laptops will go. You will not pay CXCs for people. You will not pay facilities fees. You will not do this kind of thing because it is not profitable in terms of profit and loss, dollars and cents. And when you have reckless people like that and I'm going to run a country like I run a business, we are bound to end up in trouble. So they'll take the laptops away because that's an expenditure and there's no income from that. Foolish. You heard Titus? These fellas cannot, this guy cannot see, you know, he cannot sit down and see down the future. All he knows is, well, he never run a successful business anyway. But if you're running like a business, all you think of is profit and loss. You cannot run a government like profit and loss. Things like education, healthcare, security, there's no profit in that, you know. But these are things you have to spend money on. If you are going to safeguard the country, if you're going to educate your human resource, you know, an educated workforce, an educated populace is a powerful tool that will develop the country. And so, Dr. Anderson is telling you, boy, she almost missed the boat, you know. And she had to ponder, what if my mom had not saved that money? And in those days, you know, people were not very philanthropic, you know. These days we can call upon corporate sponsors because, the economy is booming and people are more willing to assist. I always talk about the Sir John Compton Memorial Fund that Alan Shastney, who did more for our young people than Alan Shastney ever did in his 6 years in office. They want to invoke the name of Sir John, but they don't have the spirit of Sir John. They don't understand the man Sir John. Sir John in his death is still doing more for the young people of St. Lucia than Alan Shastney ever did in his 6 years in office. So she pondered, what if her mother had not saved? What if? And I believe there are many, many adults now who missed the boat because they had the intellectual ability, but they did not have the finance, and so they had to drop out. And we have to ponder, what if, things could have been different? And that is why let me extol again the virtue. Yeah, let me put that here, the virtue, the perspicacity of the Honorable Philip J. Pierre and his administration for investing heavily in education. And we cannot allow, there must be no recrudescence. We're not going back to the dark days of 2016 to 2021 when laptops were taken from our children. That was withdrawn, And you had people like Nancy Charles talking about, they're giving laptops and it's empty. Have you ever seen an empty laptop? Have you ever seen an empty phone? These Android phones, when they come loaded. And if you have a good phone, you don't even need the laptop. You could do all your work. But the laptop is better for our children. So the one laptop policy per child. Revolutionary. Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Thank you, Philip J. Pierre, for reinstating that. Because for the years 2016 to 2021, our children were deprived. And I hope these children, 2016 to 2021, you must remember that when you go to vote, that these guys deprived you of this educational tool, which could have helped you further your education. They took it away from you. Remember that. Parents who couldn't afford. And these days, everything is, you go to CXCs, when you write your CXCs now online, a lot of the things online now. And some schools, because they have limited capacity in terms of the labs, subjects go way into the night. You have to quarantine children, That's not the way. But we saw the future. Dr. Anthony instituted it. These myopic fellas came in there and they stopped, because they must stop everything. Education was not a big deal for them. Because you're the leader of the opposition and it's prime minister. He figures you don't need a degree. All you need is to go to school to learn how to serve the tourists. That's his idea of education. That's all he thinks about. When he built his hotel, he built it for white people. And we must be subservient to white people and just serving them. But no. The policy of one university graduate per child. That's what Dr. Anderson is extolling there, Think long and hard about that testimonial. I'll make political mileage with the other stuff, One of us for all of us. But I'm just focusing on the educational policies. That she's now a PhD. Dr. Anderson. She could have missed the boat. And right now, the Philip J. Pierre administration is paying for CSEC subjects for our children. Parents, do you understand how significant and how groundbreaking that policy is? I told you already, I sat on the other side of the desk when people came to me and they could not afford to pay. Of course, schools always have some kind of mechanism in place. We always have donors who are assisting. And that's why I call upon Lady Janice Compton. God bless your soul. A saint. She should be honored for, keeping the memory of her husband alive and through that foundation. Yeah, I can say that I'm labor, but Lady Janice Compton and the Sir John Compton Memorial Family has done wonders. That they have done wonders for our young people. Paying CXC subjects for students, not all, for students in all 22 public secondary schools. Sponsoring the needy and the less fortunate. Those who have the intellectual capacity but not the financial capacity. But these guys would never implement a program like that because it's not profitable. They wanted to run a country like they wanted to run a business. And if you're going to do that, it's profit and loss. So these things will suffer. And I want you, when you go to the polls, to remember that, because they're not going to continue with paying CXCs. Because if they pay CXCs, there'll be less money to thief. Yeah, I'm using the vernacular now, the local register. If you're paying and you're giving monies to, you're helping out, there's less money to do bubble, to put in your pocket. But this administration is not so. Putting you first. And so we want an educated workforce. So when you heard Dr. Anderson could not pay, she didn't know where the money was coming from. Intellectual ability, but financially depressed. And that policy, I want us to understand. This is revolutionary. This is life-changing. So parents who on minimum wage, you have 2 free children at secondary school, and you have to come up with $700, $600, $500, because now it's an increase. You have SBA, you have all kind of thing to pay. It's difficult. Some of you, God bless your soul. But the government is using our money to support us and our children. Now, some of you go on your Sunday furnace and clap. Think. You may not have children, but you have nieces and nephews, grandchildren who will benefit. Don't vote against yourself. Those policies are sound, very sound. Those policies are meant to uplift us, to take our children out of poverty, to raise us, to raise our standard of living, and to give us a better quality of life. So when Dr. Anderson says what she says there, man, that resonated with me. That almost brought a tear to my eye. You understand? Early childhood, universal early childhood education. Kakala has to be enrolled in that program. That is revolutionary. That is revolutionary. Because don't forget, children from birth to 5 years, we have to catch them at that stage. When we catch them early, we can, we can mold them. They can grow. And now parents, the Philip J. administration is saying, we have universal primary education, Labour Party, strong. Universal secondary education. Now we're going to move into universal early childhood education. That's going to be a big relief to a lot of parents, especially the single moms. Because they have some fellas, they're good for nothing. Sperm donors, not pulling their weight. I'm not one. But there are fellas, they like to breed people and they don't like to take care of the responsibilities. I have to say it. And a lot of ladies are left to hold the basket on their own. Philip J. Pierre, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, and his administration is saying, no. We're coming now, our children, we have to take them from young. And relief is in sight. He's already subsidizing early childhood centers, big relief. He's already subsidizing payment to the early childhood centers, and now he's going to say, you see, we are not reckless, We're not just coming to say things to win votes. Oh, we're going to pay for tuition for everybody at Alpha, and you don't know how you're going to do it. How are you going to do it? Oh, you're going to go to GPH, and you're going to extort money from them. That's what they're saying, The same GPH they don't want, and they're trying to lambaste and try to tell you GPH is bad for the country. But they're going to tell you that we're going to go to GPH and renegotiate. What they mean is that they're going to go there and try to extort money to pay. They have no plan. They're just saying things vai to fool you and mama guy you for a vote. Be smarter than that. So early childhood education, groundbreaking. And now 4 TVET institutes with a promise 2 more. So there's going to be 6. Diversifying, giving our children skills and trades, and giving them certifications, CVQs and NVQs. They can go anywhere in the Caribbean, present it and find work. Have a skill for life. And not only that, the method to the madness. When they graduate into skills, They want to go on their own, open their businesses. There's the Youth Employment Agency. And I must say, on Saturday, I went to a place to watch my vehicle, listening to the young guys there talking and then engaging them, only to realize that he started his business because he was able to get financing from the Youth Employment Agency, the youth economy. And I said, boy, as far as I can, Aaron, once I want to watch my vehicle, you're available, that's where I'm going to come. I'm going to support the youth. And he gave me a very good service, man. The vehicle was cleaned properly and pedals, and I was like, whoa. The boy felt proud. He told me, sir, I am strong labor. I was happy to hear that, He says, and I said, I noticed you have a busted hose. Why don't you go to the employee? He said, no, sir, that's where I went. And they set me up. I have my vacuum, I have my pressure wash, and I have everything. Youth Employment Agency. So those students graduated from the TVET Institute with a skill, because TVET is the way forward now, Don't knock it. Youth Employment Agency. You see, Philip J. Pierre, method to his madness and stuff. So when you talk about education, Dr. Anderson, I had another set of thing lined up, but I had to deviate today because that is so important. And I said I'd open the lines, but the time is on me. You out there, whether you're red, yellow, blue, orange accounting, red, yellow, blue. Yeah, okay, if you're orange too. You could call in this afternoon to Shelton and talk about how your life has been impacted by the policies. You could have your own, by the policy of this administration. You could have you make your own testimonial. Because there are a lot of people like Dr. Cherylyn Anderson. You may not be in education, but you're a banana farmer. Of course, we have a few already lined up. But you speak from the heart. Because you are impacted. My granddaughter just went to secondary school. She's 12 years old. Just went to secondary school. Just starting off. A laptop, $500 bursary, facilities fees paid, and hopefully in our next iteration, when she reaches Form 5, her CXs, by that time it will be 5 or more, will be paid. That's a relief. That's a relief to hundreds of parents. And I have seen it. Time will not permit, but I can give you stories. I watched a gentleman break down in tears, and I told you I always kept in the left-hand side tissue, because I've met parents who come and they break down. He cried, Mr. Fellow, time was up, and he couldn't pay. Big man, a man, you don't normally see men crying. 2 children from 5 couldn't pay. And from 5, they want to see, not just they want to see children write sexy, they want to see the children walk down the aisle when they graduate. To graduate, no money. And I took off, opened my drawer, gave him the tissue, and I said, Daddy, it's okay. Because I knew we would pay for them. The school, we have mechanisms. Lady Janice Compton and the Sir John Compton Memorial Foundation, and we have other means that we help students. All principles, we have our tricks in trade. He cried, I allowed him to cry, shed his tear. I said, Daddy, it's okay. It's okay. We will help you out. And Dr. Anderson, her mom had some money, yes. But I saw in those days, she didn't know where to turn. You heard the candidate for Babono, John Estefan, say he had that same problem. And that somebody helped him out. But these days, you don't have that. I realize, man, jeez, man. Time is up on me there, unfortunately. Time went back so quickly. This is so emotional. This is so hard. Touch my heart. And we can continue on that. I realize the time, I've gone past time. Cheese on, as the bitches, cheese on bread, man, cheese on. I didn't realize. You know what I mean? I didn't realize. But I shall be back on Thursday morning. And we shall continue. So tune in again on Thursday, 9 o'clock. People First, where we continue to extol and expound upon the good deeds of the Philip J. administration and his cabinet. Until Thursday, cheerios.